This is William and Lonsdale, a podcast about the legal ecosystem and the fascinating people who make it tick. Today, your host Michael Green speaks with migration lawyer, principal and founder of Mason Chen Law Group, Traci Chen. Traci herself migrated to Australia from China at 2 years old, and both her experience and that of her parents have significantly informed her career, particularly her understanding and empathy for her clients' journey to come to Australia. As you'll hear today, Traci is an innate entrepreneur. While studying law, she built and sold a successful solar panel business. She bought her first house at 19, and in the last 5 years, she has grown Mason Chen from a sole practice, Traci in her home office, to a firm with 80 employees. Traci uses social media to extraordinary effect to communicate with current and potential clients and grow her business. She has 250,000 followers on TikTok and even more on Instagram. She was an early adopter of TikTok, and even though she wasn't sure what exactly this new app was all about, she had an instinct that it could help her business. So, like Traci's approach to so many things along her journey, she dove in and figured it out along the way.
When I first started posting on the internet, I was just doing it for fun. I was doing it to learn because I saw TikTok, there was lots of ads about it, and I was just curious about it. I had no idea that people would actually look for legal advice or just information on silly videos. That's what we call them, silly videos.
Our guest this morning in Lives in the Law is Traci Chen. Traci is a principal of Mason Chen Law Group. Good morning, Traci.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. I've mentioned Mason Chen Law Group, Traci. Tell us a bit about it. You started it 5 years ago. What area of law do you work in? Have you got a particular business model, the firm, the staff, et cetera, et cetera? Just tell us about it so we've got a picture of Mason Chen.
So yes, I started Mason Chen Law Group 5 years ago in the thick of COVID. During that time, offices were all closed. So I did start the business based on work from home. And till today, all the lawyers, all the admin staff, everyone still works from home. And we've just found that that model does work for us. We specialise in immigration law. We do all types of visas, mainly, and we work with corporate immigration, general skilled migration, as well as short-term visitor visas and student visas.
And you say you're completely remote. To me, as someone who's been in the law 50-odd years and remote didn't exist, I find that strange. How do you run a firm remotely? How do you build a culture? How do you have everybody on the same page working together when we are in different cities, even different countries on occasions?
That's very true. And I have staff across all states, New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, and I do have staff overseas as well. I think as the team gets bigger, there is other challenges. However, the model seemed to work with us because in immigration law, it's very different. It's very fast-paced, and also people want things to happen now. And so I've worked in law firms previously where it was face-to-face and people came into the office. Perhaps that's not fast-paced enough for immigration. It's very interesting because people want their visa now. So sometimes when they call up for a booking with us, they want a consultation within the next couple of hours because they need the answer now. And so logistically, that really works for a remote firm because we're able to send them a Zoom meeting. They can just meet with us within the next couple of hours if there is availability and get their answers straight away, and also start working on the matter straight away. So maybe it's the nature. I haven't really done other areas of law before, but it works really well for immigration.
And these people who are ringing you, getting in touch, are they mainly overseas, mainly within Australia, a mixture?
I'd say mixture, but majority is probably here in Australia because obviously they have access to more information. They're already here on some sort of temporary visa and they're really looking for a more long-term solution or essentially a permanent solution to stay in Australia. We do have people from overseas, but I think that's a mixture of my content where it reaches and also just people onshore more well-informed to get the information.
You started in COVID Was there a demand at the time? Were people who were looking for visas? Did COVID actually accentuate the demand?
Yeah, so what happened was during COVID, I was actually let go from my job at an immigration law firm because they were mainly doing corporate immigration. And obviously a lot of businesses, they didn't know what the future looked like. So they had people that already had visas to travel to Australia. And we had to tell those people that you have to turn back from the airport now because we don't know if we have a job here for you in Australia, and also borders are closing. So I lost my job during that time. And then I started posting on the internet information. And it's very interesting. A lot of people don't know this, but there was actually over 2 million people stuck in Australia. So there was a demand, but that wasn't well known. Everybody was just thinking of people coming into Australia, not the ones that were just stuck here.
Now, you said posting on the internet. You're assuming there'll be people on the internet searching for answers to their immigration problems, and therefore you're letting it be known that your firm, Mason Chen, can help them. Was that what you were doing?
When I first started posting on the internet, I was working for another law firm at the time. And no, I didn't know. I was just doing it for fun. I was doing it to learn because I saw TikTok, there was lots of ads about it, and I was just curious about it. I had no idea that people would actually look for legal advice or just information on silly videos. That's what we call them, silly videos. Yeah.
Traci, you jokingly used the phrase silly videos, but that makes sense to me as someone from a different generation who's not that au fait with social media. What social media did you use to get the word out there? Were you using Instagram? Were you using TikTok? Were you using all those other ones I don't know? What did you do?
So at the beginning when I was working at the law firm, they were big on actually writing articles and putting them up as blog posts. So I was doing that, and that's a lot of law firms do that still today, and they are effective. But I started posting on TikTok, one, because I was just curious, but two, because it was a very shortened video. So something that would be in a blog post that's 1,000 words, I shorten it to a 30-second video, and I'd post it on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. And it turns out the feedback that I get is that people do actually prefer that because they just want to know the information now. They don't want to have to go through 1,000 words to find out what the answer is or how to get that visa.
And so in doing this, did you create a following, and what was that following? What was the size of it?
At the beginning, it did grow pretty quickly. And I think within a matter of months, I was at 30,000 on TikTok. And then that just grew to over 100,000. And today we're at 250,000 on TikTok. And on Instagram, we're on 270,000.
I find it amazing. And just to complete this early snapshot of where you're at or how you got there a little bit, how many staff does the firm employ now?
So it's around 80.
So from 4 or 5 years ago, basically using social media as your business development tool, you've grown to a firm that has 80 people.
Yeah, that's right.
I find that amazing. Traci, we've got to take it back to the start because obviously every story has a beginning. Tell us about your mum and dad, how they came to Australia, what their circumstances were, how you grew up.
So I was born in 1990. My dad came to Australia before I was born. So my mum found out she was pregnant with me and my dad had to come to Australia already. They didn't have much of a plan. Obviously, the plan was to reunite in Australia. But when my dad came to Australia, he did get a bit of a shock. It was tough. It was hard. English was not his first language. And he was studying his master's and then he did a PhD. He was
in what discipline?
Organic chemistry. And that was in South Australia. And during that time, to support himself, he did the odd jobs, restaurant, dishwashing and all of that just to make ends meet. And I think that for them to reunite, that was prolonged because my dad thought, it's really hard here. Stay in China for a little bit longer. Let me set up a little bit more here for you before you guys come. So it wasn't until I was turned 2 until we actually travelled to Australia and I met my dad for the first time.
And your dad gets his PhD in organic chemistry. One would assume that leads to a job, possibly in academia, but not for your dad.
No. So he did have a couple of odd jobs working in the university, but I think there was, I think it was a matter of the market as well. South Australia, the market was a bit smaller. Perhaps if he looked interstate, reflecting back on it now, maybe there would be more opportunities. However, due to funding as well, there was probably issues with funding as well for organic chemistry industry. So then he didn't end up working in that discipline. He ended up taking up odd factory jobs and only retired in the last 5 years or something.
So making this huge move, coming from China, your mum comes 2 years later. I think she was a public servant in China before she came, but she works in retail here. Do your parents look back and think, on balance, it was a good move, or maybe on balance, it might have been better if we stayed in China?
This is a very big question, and it's for so many other people of my mum's generation that came to Australia. They always reflect back and think, would they have done better if they stayed in China? Because China did develop later on. They were very worried that it wasn't. That's why everybody left. However, looking back, all their friends now are generally quite successful. But I guess the biggest thing for them was, one is being able to come to Australia, which is, they look back, is absolutely still and absolutely will be the best country in the world. But also China was subject to the one-child policy. So, they came to Australia, and then 6 years later they also had my sister. And I think for them there's not much that can compare to that. Following
on with the story of immigrants, what about language? So your mum and dad come from China. As I understand it, the national language is Mandarin. And then there are regional languages as well. I'm assuming they don't come to Australia fluent in English. What about you girls, you and your sister? Are you getting English at home? Are you learning English as you grow up, like your children probably are now? What about you and language for you? What language did you learn originally?
So when we first came to Australia, my mum definitely didn't know any English. My dad did, because he was studying here. His command of English was much better than my mum. However, at home, we just spoke Chinese. And so I didn't know any English until I first went to kindergarten. I don't remember much, but I remember it being a little bit of a shock, not understanding. But I think as children, we are resilient and we did learn very quickly. So that was the same as my sister. She had a bit more of influence from me because I'd bring home English and start talking a bit of English at home. But at home, because my parents didn't speak fluent English, we spoke Chinese.
But you quickly picked up English through kindergarten. Your children are, and they're sponges. They're open to taking whatever's happening around them. So continuing on with your education, educated in Adelaide, were you a good student? Did you enjoy school?
Yeah, look, I went to public primary school. Then I went to a Catholic high school, an all-girls Catholic high school, and that was near my house at the time. And then during that time, again, I was just a little bit curious. So I did a couple of scholarship exams, entrance exams, and got a scholarship at a prestigious girls' school. And so I did, I think, year 10 to 12 there. And then that's where I finished year 12 and got into law school.
And throughout this period, was law on your radar? Were you looking, thinking, that's a career I'd like to follow?
I think growing up, when your parents kind of talk about your future, yes, law is on the radar and medicine's on the radar. And I think for myself, I had to pick between the two. And I was never good with like blood or gore or anything like that. So that's why I picked law.
So years 10, 11 and 12, you won a scholarship to a prestigious high school in Adelaide. Was that a good experience? Did that help you on your journey towards law or medicine?
Upon reflection, now that I'm older, looking back on it, I don't know if that was the best decision for me, because when I did go to this school, I was pretty out of place. So I didn't have, parents like them or whatever they had, I didn't have that. And I think that did knock my confidence a little bit and I regressed a little bit. I don't know if I stayed at the other school, what I would have done and what path I would have followed. I'm still certain I would have ended up doing law or medicine or something along those lines. But I just think that, I changed a lot during those years because I was just I felt so out of place.
But still got good enough marks to get into law school?
Yes.
And it was Flinders University you went to in Adelaide?
Yes.
7 years? Now, I'm assuming it's a 4 or 5 year course, and I'm assuming you took 7 years because you were not full-time because you had jobs to help support yourself.
That's right. So it did take longer. The people that I started with were not the people I graduated with. During that time, because you're in university, you're a little bit older, I looked to other things. And during that time, I was working different jobs. But then I got myself into starting a business. During that time, solar panels and that industry was really booming. And so I started working in a solar panel firm, but then that firm relocated to another state. So then I just decided to start my own solar panel business. And that's why during that time, it took me so long to finish my law degree because I was essentially studying part-time.
I mean, it's very easy to say I started my own solar panel business, but starting a business isn't that easy. There's a lot of cost involved. There's a lot of knowledge of knowing an industry and then also knowing how to run a business. What did you do?
I was like 21 or 22 at the time. So looking back on it, I was very young and it was my first business, my first proper business essentially. I worked in the industry a little bit, so I was able to understand what resources we needed. So I saved a bit of money through all the years that I worked. And so I used that first pool of money to buy the solar panels and buy the stock that I needed. And then I had a team that did the marketing. I was doing the marketing previously at the previous solar panel business. So I was able to kind of build a small little team there.
You employed people?
Yes, I did. Yes.
And went through all of the hassle of paying PAYE tax, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, and worked all that out, yes. And, you learn more as you go, obviously. I probably made a few mistakes there as well. But then I worked with electricians and installers as contractors.
And did you have a base you worked from? Did you go and rent premises?
I worked from home.
And so what about the solar panels? They stayed with the manufacturer until you picked them up and took them to the job?
That's right, yeah. And I think that's why that was able to work, because you can just kind of order on demand. Because of the nature of the industry, there was just so many different suppliers and they were very flexible with you. So when you got a job in, they already had the stock, you just order it and there's solar installers would just pick it up.
Interesting that you're doing that at age 21, 22, Traci. You didn't stay with it though. You after a period, you sold it. Why did you do that?
I just wanted to try something different at the time. I was finishing my law degree and I did enjoy it. I started working as a paralegal in a law firm towards the end of my law degree. And I thought, okay, I really think I can make a career out of this.
Were there lessons you learnt in running a business as opposed to a legal practice which were helpful to you and you still apply today?
Yeah, very much so. I think it's the people piece that's the most important, because when you run a business and as your business grows, your employees and your team members are so important. And so, again, I made some mistakes probably in my solar panel business with the way I dealt with people or handled personnel problems. And so I took those lessons with me into growing the business now. And hopefully that is helping the culture now.
It's all about people. You sell the business and then for the last 2 years of your degree, you work as a paralegal. Was that a strategic decision thinking about your future? I want to get into a practice, see what the practice of the law is like as opposed to the study of it to help me with my future. Was that why you did it?
Yeah, and absolutely. And I heard that it's just not easy to finish a law degree and get a lawyer job. So I really wanted to kind of have that experience prior and get my foot in the door prior.
And so what did you do? This as a paralegal, was it a couple of days a week or 5 days a week?
No, it was a couple of days a week and I was just assisting the principal it was immigration when we first started. I think I did a little bit of commercial, a little bit of conveyancing, and I just shadowed the principal, helped with drafting applications. Pretty sure I attended court a couple of times as well. So I really got some good experience there.
So the firm you worked with as a paralegal was Doc and Aid Legal, a Vietnamese principal named Peter Doe, and he had lots of Vietnamese clients who had a need for immigration law or migration law.
Yeah, that's right. And during that time, he gave me a lot of those files to look after. And I don't think I did any immigration prior to that. I didn't even do immigration as an elective in university. So I thought, okay, this is interesting. But as soon as I did start working on the files, it was something that I understood very clearly. And I could empathise with the clients as well, because I know my family had been through the same thing. So I understood what the application meant to them, the information we needed to collect, and all the things that we needed to do and needed to do properly.
Were you supervised in this or were you really learning yourself as you went along?
I think, in a smaller firm, you're always thrown in the deep end. Yeah, and so that was a really good learning curve for me.
To learn about the regulatory side of it, because I assume there are a lot of regulations you have to comply with in migration law.
That's right, and the different types of visas as well. So we started off with like employer, corporate visas, and then we really pivoted to business visas, which today don't even exist anymore.
We're going to learn a lot this morning about migration law, Traci, which is good. You come to Melbourne, you work 2 years at Neville & Co doing immigration law. You then move on to a bigger immigration firm, TSS Immigration. When you say a bigger immigration firm, what sort of work do they do that a firm like Neville & Co didn't do?
So Neville & Co is a boutique law firm. They specialise in property and commercial in Melbourne, and they've been around for a very long time. And so through their commercial and property work, they had a lot of contacts for people that are buying property from overseas that wanted to immigrate to Australia as well. So for them, we were looking at business investor visas, and that's what I mainly did while I was at Neville & Co. However, we knew that investor visas were changing, and then I was really interested in corporate immigration as well. So there are a lot of immigration law firms like Newell & Chase that handle large corporate accounts where large Australian businesses regularly hire people from overseas to work within the Australian business.
And so all this time, you're improving your knowledge of immigration law. You're getting a larger perspective on it. You're getting a far greater knowledge and database yourself about this area, and it continues on. But then you finish with Newell & Chase at around the time COVID starts.
Yeah, so when I started, Newell & Chase had already acquired TSS Immigration, and I was working with the TSS immigration firm, and we're handling corporate immigration. So we're doing visas for chefs, other trades. And then that was at the beginning of 2020. And then that's when everything started changing during that time. I remember we had to work out how to work from home because we weren't allowed to go into the office. We had to work out the laptop situation, the network situation, and start working from home. Then we were all changed to part-time, and then I was let go in May.
Because you were the last person in, you were the first person out, effectively.
Yeah. I was still in probation, so it was probably easier.
Yeah. But soon thereafter, this is a difficult thread to follow for me, Traci. You're living in Geelong. Your partner, he's a doctor working in a hospital down there. And so you get a job with a Geelong firm, Coulter Roach, doing immigration?
Yes. So I had met someone at Coulter Roach, I think earlier on in the year as well. And they had always been interested in starting an immigration arm as well. They do a lot of corporate, commercial, property law, and I think they're the second largest law firm in Geelong. Have been around for ages as well. And so when I reached out to them, they were very interested in it. They'd always been getting referrals for immigration, but they always had to refer the work out. However, again, it was during COVID during that time, so I was offered a part-time role 3 days a week. I was working Monday, Wednesday and Friday.
Now, at the same time, a strange business called Scrub a Duck comes up. What is Scrub a Duck? How did it come into being? What did it do?
Yes. Gosh, sometimes I forget about that. So during that time, it was COVID. And my husband, who's a doctor, could not get medical scrubs. So he needed medical scrubs because he would wear a shirt and pants to work. But because of COVID, everybody was scared. He just wanted scrubs that we could come home and drench in boiling water and leave it outside. So we're just looking for scrubs. And the usual suppliers that he usually buy from, they said, there was it was a 3-month wait to get scrubs. And I thought, wow, that is a long time and it can't be that hard to get scrubs. So then, because I was working part-time at that firm, I had a bit of time on my hands. So I did some research into how to get scrubs, and I just looked on, Chinese manufacturers and suppliers, and I've thought, okay, well, maybe I can start an e-commerce business, start selling scrubs. And during that time, that's when there was a real fashion change in scrubs. So with medical scrubs, there was the traditional looking ones that you wear to theatre, but now they're really trendy. So now they have different materials. They're the pants are different styles, and there's all these different patterns and designs. It's a whole new thing. It's really blown up in the last, I reckon, 5-6 years, medical scrubs. And so I had the time, so I was like, okay, I want to try and import some scrubs and sell them. I knew I had to market them somehow. And again, it was during COVID, so you don't have a lot of the traditional forms of marketing, whether it be, going to different places to, show your product or anything like that. And again, that's when I saw TikTok on the internet. I saw TikTok on TV, and I thought it was very interesting. So I started watching videos of TikTok and how to start a TikTok account. And they said, you need to practice. You need to be very good at making these videos because you need to make videos every single day. And I didn't have the scrubs at the time. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make videos every single day. And they said, you need to talk about something you know a lot about because it just flows and it just makes the whole process easier. And so I thought, the only thing I know is migration law. So I'm just going to get in front of the camera and talk about migration law. I had absolutely no intention of trying to market it. It was just going on there to practice my self-confidence.
And so, Tracy, this is to educate me on TikTok. You make a short video, I think you said maybe 15 or 30 seconds, and just put it out there. And it's a question of whether someone looks at it or not. I mean, if I go onto TikTok, why would I have picked up Traci Chen's video on migration law? How would I have done it? Because I'm, what an answer to my visa question, I'm searching immigration law, visa, and up comes Traci Chen.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. So with TikTok, when I first started, the actual application itself is very good. You can film in there. So you open up the application, you film in there.
Just for me again, on your phone?
Yes, on my phone. Yep.
Yeah.
I open it up and then you film and then you edit in there and then you post. So you don't need to do anything. You don't need to jump out of different applications. It's all one-stop shop. So it makes it easier as well. Obviously, at the beginning, it takes you a bit longer because you've got to fiddle around and work out how to use it. But once you've figured it out, it's really easy and it's a real streamlined process. So you do it and you post it. And you might put a little bit of stuff in the caption to do with immigration so the video knows that you're talking about Australian immigration. And during that time, I was, and I'm pretty sure, the first person to talk about Australian immigration law on there. No one really knows how the algorithm works. So the app has an algorithm and it feeds viewers videos that they want to see. What I've heard from people is that they'll just be talking to a friend and have their phone there and start talking about immigration, and literally they'll go to their phone, open up TikTok, and my video will be the first one to come up. So I think it's listening to us. That's the first thing. And then when you watch the video, when it sees that you've watched one of my videos, it will know that it likes my videos and it likes Australian immigration, so it'll just keep feeding those videos to you. And then also, yes, thirdly, you can go into the app and then you can search videos about Australian immigration or whatever.
But you've got to keep making videos. I mean, it's no good, I guess, if you make one and next week and the week after and the month after, it's still the same old video. So there's a expectation upon you to keep providing new content.
Absolutely. And I don't do as much these days because I have like a business to run. But back then I was doing videos like maybe at the beginning one a day. And then like I was doing like 3 a day.
3 a day?
Yeah.
And you started doing this while you were with Coulter Roach?
Yes.
How long were you with Coulter Roach for?
About a year, I think. And so when I was at Coulter Roach, they had referrals from their existing clients. That was good. So I started doing that work. But they also said, you need to bring in your own work, which is very normal for a lot of law firms. So I was just kind of like, okay, well, I'm on TikTok, so let's just see how it goes. There was no funnel or anything though. It was just me on TikTok. And then maybe if the person was interested, maybe they could search me and then I'll come up as Coulter Roach. And that was happening. So people were searching me and then they called in at Coulter Roach. And it started, kind of getting quite busy and kind of blowing up. Yeah.
And then how long after this did you open Mason Chen?
I was there for a while. So, the leads were coming in. I was getting work and all of that stuff. It was just very busy time. And so I just decided it was time to open my own law firm in June 2021. So it was about a year I was there. Yeah.
On your own? You didn't have a partner, a legal partner?
No, it was on my own.
Entirely on your own, from home?
Yes.
Now, even today, with a busy firm employing 80 people, still from home?
Yes, that is
You've got
correct.
an office at home you go to do your work?
Yep.
It's different, Tracy.
And so does every other employee. Yeah.
Okay, so you start your own firm on your own using your only business development tool at the time, I'm assuming, is TikTok. How quickly did it start to grow? I mean, were you, within a week or so, were you all of a sudden having people sending you instructions online?
So when I first started, I had worked in a number of law firms, but I don't think I had a lot of experience on how to actually open a law firm and start a law firm and run a law firm and all the compliance stuff behind it. So I did reach out to a lot of law firms that work in this area and I sought advice on everything that I needed to do to set my law firm up properly. And then I worked, till today, from now until then, I've worked with another law firm, just continuing to get that advice because...
Sorry, Tracy, advice on what? On the business side of running a firm or on the regulatory side, complying with the regulations by the Law Institute, etc.?
Both, because I am the only, I'm not the only principal now and that's something we'll talk about later, but back then I was the only principal. Yeah. So I didn't really have anyone to reach out to find the information and it's very scary because with the law it's so heavily regulated and I wanted to make sure that we did things correctly. So I worked with numerous law firms and that was really that senior or that partnership that I had to ensure that side.
So you engaged a law firm to advise you, and you're their client.
Yeah.
And they're giving you advice on the things you need to do to properly structure and run a legal firm.
Yes, that's right. Even with posting TikToks on social media, I was worried about how that goes, because you're talking, it's not supposed to be legal advice, it's just supposed to be information. But even the disclaimers on there, all the things I had on there, I made sure I sought the right advice around it.
And you brought up something there that I'd never thought of, but professional indemnity insurance. Did it create an issue with your insurer about doing the TikToks and therefore possibly you might open yourself up to liability for something?
So far, no. That never came up as something with my indemnity insurance.
They accept you as a normal firm and you haven't got a higher premium because of the TikToks.
No. I have brought up the TikToks with them and they never brought it up, so maybe I'll bring it up with them again.
As long as they know about it, you're fine, as you know. It also was interesting to me, you'd said in your notes or in our notes that prior to our conversation that the demographic of your clients is basically mid-20s to 40, mid-40s. I'm assuming that makes them more comfortable with working in this way, working online and not having face-to-face contact.
That's exactly right. And I think that's, again, why it has worked and why the business has grown, because that's just what they're used to. I talked to someone about this today. So these days, people are on their phone all the time and they want instant notifications, instant gratification. And so if you're waiting, because lawyers are busy, my lawyers are busy. And so they don't have time to have a meeting face-to-face with someone, maybe until for another week. But what people want is they want the information now. So when building my business, that was actually a really important component of my business. So when someone comes in, the flow, how they contact us, how they continue communications with us, it's set up in a way where they get really instant or really quick feedback and advice.
How many IT people do you employ?
Right now, 3.
And 3 full-time people working on IT the whole time.
Absolutely. For example, there's so many things that we leverage off using technology and it helps the business a lot because we've got a big client base and things just need to be handled quicker, and it's not quick enough when someone gets to the manager or gets to whoever and then it gets to you. We need to know straight away. Otherwise, the client won't be happy, and we've set up systems around that.
And you've made a comment about it's best for senior lawyers to be managing and overseeing junior lawyers. Is that difficult remotely when we're not if you want to go back nearly 60 years, I was a junior lawyer and I went into my principal's office and sat opposite him as I'm sitting opposite you now, and he told me things and taught me. Is it more difficult to do that remotely?
No, but I do like the older school way. I do like it, and I always do tell my current lawyers, I say, sometimes we do try and get them together and they don't want to come. People just don't want to do it these days. They just want to stay at home. But I say, no, you should come for this, training session in person. It's just different when it's in person. But no, the way they do it now is, again, it's an instant thing. So maybe that helps because they're able to just go on their computer, video call them, and be, oh, hello, senior, and then get the answer straight away. I don't know what it was like for you. Did you have to book a time or did it take some time? No, okay.
Just walk in the door and if he's free, he was free. If he wasn't, he wasn't.
Yeah, okay.
I must say, I think it's a different experience to deal with someone face-to-face over a desk than it is to deal with someone on a screen. And I would wonder whether, as a principal yourself, dealing with junior lawyers or other people you're employing, whether you might be missing some of the nuances of things and maybe difficulties they're having or by not having a face-to-face meeting.
I agree. And that's something that I do advocate for within the firm. I say, we need to do more of these in-person meetings, and so that we can learn more about you. You can learn more. And it's just different when you're in person. You just get so much more information, but they don't like it. They're like, no, it's fine. I saw a TikTok the other day where this person was meeting with their manager and they refused to turn their video on. That's just generation, yeah. And she was fighting back. She said, no, does the me turning on the video affect the outcome of this meeting?
So the manager couldn't see the person?
Yeah.
It was just audio?
Yeah. The manager had the video on and he said, I don't want to start this meeting until you turn your video on. And she's like, well, does it affect the outcome of this meeting?
Possibly does, yes. Turn it on. Was this in a legal context or just a general business context?
No, it was a general business context, yeah. But that's that's what happens these days.
So that being the case, when you're hiring people, number one, you're not hiring them face-to-face, you're hiring them online. what are you looking for in obviously you want legal skills, but what other things do you want from people to work successfully in this environment?
I think that they definitely need to have good articulation and a good command of their speech when they're speaking to people. And that's something that I do look for. You can tell in videos because you are able to, communicate with them and ask them the right questions. That's probably one of the most important things, because as a lawyer, you need to speak confidently. Otherwise, the client does lose confidence in what you're saying. And then also knowledge of the law and, everything that's going on with the immigration area.
Well, mentioning the immigration area, it is very much a niche area in law. Is it anything different about practicing immigration as opposed to practicing in commercial or personal injuries or crime or family or whatever?
I've done a little bit of work in conveyancing many moons ago. It is very different because when you do immigration law, this is the way I see it. When you do immigration law, you lodge an application and it's assessed by a case officer, but also the requirements and the regulatory thing is one thing, but it's still at the discretion of the case officer. So depending on how they view the documents or what's happening in the political climate, it can actually affect the decision of the case.
And I was wondering about the political climate, really. I mean, at the moment, there's a major debate in Australia about immigration. One of the instances we're seeing is in relation to the ISIS brides and their children. Should they be allowed back in? That must have a big impact upon immigration law, politics.
Yeah, and I think that's a purely political thing because I don't understand too much about what's going on there, but my understanding is there were citizens and then they gave up their citizenship. I'm not sure. But if you are an Australian citizen, you have a right to return, unless they create another law to not allow them to come in.
But as I understand it, and that's a very low bar what I understand, they do change the law when it suits them.
Yeah, and so I think I saw a question the other day, it's like, why aren't they changing the law now then?
And that sort of thing does happen, doesn't it? If they, and particularly I guess if they think, to use a political term, if they're going to be wedged by the opposition, well then we'll change the law so the opposition can't use that against us.
Yeah. And so I don't really, with other areas of immigration, they do change the law overnight and it's a big change.
And so do you have to keep up to date by reading the newspapers or watching news broadcasts? Is there also a service that provides the legislation and the changes to the legislation to you regularly?
That's very interesting because it depends on what it is. So sometimes if it's a big change, obviously there's news about it. And then we have our professional bodies which will obviously send us information about it and send us where to read. But there's small changes into other areas of immigration visas where they'll just change it in the policy or change it in the legislation and you don't know. And then only when I look back on it, because when you're reviewing something, you look back on it, you're like, hold on, that's not what it said 3 months ago. And I dig up what's happened 3 months ago and it's changed. So they don't always tell you. And that's what makes immigration law so hard.
William and Lonsdale is brought to you by Green's List, one of the leading multidisciplinary barristers lists in Australia. Green's List believe in promoting conversation around the ideas and issues that shape not only our legal system, but our wider community.
And so someone's come to you, they want advice, they want to get a particular visa. We're communicating online. You send documents, I'm the client, you send me documents online, I read them, I sign them online, I'm assuming. I send them back to you. You then lodge them with the relevant government department. For me, the client, how does it finish?
So depending on what type of visa and what type of application we are doing, so there is applications that are relevant to visas that affect the visa application later. So we might do that part first, get a result, then move on to the next part. And this is all online. So probably another reason why this remote firm works. Everything is online. And then there's different types of visas, and this is what makes it really hard about immigration. So there is types of visas where you can lodge and you can get a result, or there's types of visas where you first have to lodge an expression of interest, then wait for an invitation, then lodge the visa. And unfortunately for us, we have no control over both those situations. So when we could lodge a visa and the current processing time is 2 months, but then after 2 months, it's blown out to 24 months. And during that 24 months, we're still managing everything and we have...
Managing my expectations.
Yeah. Yes, and the application. And we have no control over it because it could be delayed by, again, political things, or it just could be delayed because there's a lot of visas and they don't have enough case officers. I heard like a couple months ago that just last year alone, 9.48 million visas were lodged to Australia.
It's amazing. We certainly couldn't have the staff, you would think, public service staff to deal with that. I mean, so therefore a lot of it must be dealt with by algorithms and artificial intelligence and other things when you're talking 9 million in a year.
No, I mean, I don't think so, because all the visa decisions we get is assessed by a case officer, and we've got the case officer name at the bottom. So that's why the processing time is blowing out to 24 months. I've got visas for business visa is different. I lodged in 2016. I still haven't got a result. And then parent visas, they're saying they're taking up to 12 to 16 years to process.
So what's a parent visa?
So like there's, again, like, so if you are an Australian citizen, your siblings are Australian citizens, you can sponsor your parent to come to Australia. But that's a combination of a couple of things like, just how many spots there are. And so they're taking 12 to 16 years to process.
12 to 16 years?
And there's a remaining relative visa. When people ask me how long it's taken, I said, I've never seen one approved in my life. I think they take like 50 years to process.
Quite amazing, Traci. And I mean, to me, it's an area of the law that very few of us would know anything about, apart from specialists like yourself. Traci, is there such a thing as a typical person who's applying for a visa to come to Australia? Is it a student? Is it a person with particular skills that Australia needs? A nurse, someone who works in agriculture? Is there anything typical like that, or is it really just as broad as us human beings are?
So there is lots of different types of visas, but the ones for permanent visas that probably happen the most are your skilled visas and employer-sponsored visas. And that's because Australia does want that talent. I hear from employers all the time that they can't find the right people to do their job. And so a lot of people from overseas are coming in to do those jobs, essentially. They do range from probably like early 20s to 40. Now, it does stop around 40, 45 because for the main visas, the cap is 45. So you can't migrate to Australia permanently if you're over 45, but for other visas like partner visas and stuff like that. But for your skilled migration, your working people, it's like early 20s. The people that come on their early 20s usually come on student visas. So they may have completed a degree overseas or not, and they're coming to Australia to complete that degree. Some come to Australia just to study, and they thought they were going to go back. Some maybe have the intention to stay here permanently, or some come here and they just fall in love with the country and they don't want to go back to their home country. And Australia does have a pathway for people to stay here and live permanently, but it's only two main ones. So when people ask me, are there any other ways? I say no, there's just two main ones. They just want skilled workers. So people who finish their degree, they're supposed to go home, because when in your student visa application, the whole thing talks about what you're coming to study and then why is this going to help you at home. But they are eligible to apply for a work visa once they graduate, and that usually lasts anywhere between 2 to 4 years. So they stay here and work and they get that experience, which is great. But during that time, they can do their application, do their documentation to get a visa to stay in Australia long term. And these people are educated. So we're talking about degrees that are, engineering, medical, healthcare, IT. And so if they are able to find a job here, they potentially can have the right profile to migrate to Australia permanently.
So it's really about skills that Australia needs.
And that changes all the time. So right now it is nurses and teachers, but 5 years ago it was like IT and accounting. But now accounting, people in the industry will know it's like dead. That's what they say. Not to say people don't still get invited, but it's not at the same rate as teachers and nurses.
Lives in the Law is proudly sponsored by City Maps Illustrated. Their recent publication, The Melbourne Map, is a celebration of our wonderful city. This stunning, hand-drawn illustration, which took more than 3 years to create, is available as an art print, jigsaw puzzle and calendar. The perfect acquisition for your home, office or corporate gifting.
Can I go back to Mason Chen? So just tell us right now, you started off on your own and then you, after a few months, you got an IT person and now you've got 80 people in the firm. How many lawyers?
There's around 25.
25 lawyers?
Yeah.
Principals, partners?
So with principals, there is another 5 now.
And so what's the structure? There are 5 of you all working in migration law?
Yes, we only do migration law.
Yeah, 5 of you. And then another, in some sort of a hierarchical structure, another 20-odd lawyers below the principals.
Yeah, we have like senior associates. Then we have lawyers. Yeah, and your lawyers and junior lawyers. And they kind of manage each of their teams. So the junior lawyer will work on the case, work with their paralegals, and then send the work into the senior to review.
Back to TikTok, because of course, as the dinosaur that I am, it amazes me about TikTok being a major part of a legal firm. You can't have the time to keep doing TikTok posts all the time. Someone else in the firm does them now?
No, I do them. The other lawyers, we do regularly get them to do videos as well. So they have their face on there as well. But because the way that these applications are built these days, it only takes 5 minutes to do a video. If you know what you're doing and you have a lot of experience. People think it takes a long time, that, I don't want to do it. It takes hours, got to get ready, all that stuff. No, you can just turn the video on. You can turn a filter on so that you look better too. And then you just film it and then you just post it. That's it. 5 minutes is all it takes. And my video is actually featured in the LIV practice management course when they do it. My videos come up. Yeah, when they talk about the marketing segment.
And are many other firms now using social media as a business development tool?
Yes. Absolutely, yes. And I follow some lawyers and I really like what they do. Immigration, there's a lot of migration agents and lawyers that do it. But other areas, like I watch employment law now, I watch like family law. It's all very interesting because no one really knows about it. No one really talks about it. And so just to go on and watch a 30-second video, like it's just so interesting. And then when you need that person, you're like, well, I'm going to go to that person because I know them. I heard in marketing that you need to see someone or something 7 times before you purchase from them. And so if you're just watching their videos over the years, when you need that, you'll probably go to them.
Traci, one point I haven't followed up on, and I should have, of course, was the business of Scrub a Duck. How could I forget it with a name like that? What happened to Scrub a Duck?
So we did all right. Like it was selling. We had our own, channel going. We had our own little thing going on. But then I just got too busy with the law firm. And I thought, I can't do this. And I had hired someone to help me, but like you have to really be within the business to actually grow. And you can't just have someone, growing it for you. It just doesn't quite work that way. Anyway, so I had a lot of scrubs left over. So I reached out to like a business broker. I said, I have this business. This is how it's doing. I really want to sell it. I think it's within a matter of months they find a buyer for it. So I sold the business. Yeah.
So you got out of that. And that brings me to the fact that I think people listening to this conversation would pick up the fact that you're not adverse to taking a risk. I mean, as a student starting a solar panel business, you were still a student with Scrub a Duck. Or no, you're a young solicitor. What about the future? Can you see yourself taking on other challenges, maybe inside the law or even outside the law?
I have thought about this before. And at the very moment, I can just see myself continuing to grow the business to become a, global powerhouse in immigration. I think with immigration law, there isn't many law firms that are kind of like synonymous with immigration. And so I want to become that law firm.
Traci, I have no doubt you will. What you've done so far in your young life has been quite amazing and really interesting to listen to. Thank you for coming in this morning and telling us about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Show notes from today's episode can be found at greenslist.com.au/podcast. There you'll find links to things we've talked about in this episode, a transcript of the show, and some wonderful photos of our guests. If you're enjoying Lives in the Law, please tell your networks, subscribe, rate and review the show. Your host is former lawyer and Greens List clerk Michael Green. Our show is produced and edited by me, Catherine Green, mixed and mastered by Windmill Audio, and recorded by Alex McFarlane, who also wrote and performed all the music for the series. We're coming to you from the iconic Owen Dixon Chambers on the corner of William and Lonsdale Streets in our beautiful city of Melbourne. We acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of this land and pay our respect to their elders past and present. There is no doubt that conversations about justice have been taking place on this land for thousands of years, and we are privileged to continue that discussion here today.